Okay. Welcome back to Tradecraft for Life. I am Scott, and I am your interrogator, and you're a human intelligence collector today. Yes, I have a background in this. So today, we're going to go over the human emotional spectrum, and I put together a PowerPoint for y'all because it's actually easier to go over the PowerPoint for y'all to kind of see it, to kind of understand where we're going to come from today. Because today we're going to talk about the Bondinator, Pam Bondi, and someone by the name of Valhalla calls her the pedo protector Barbie. Yeah, I think I got that right. So Valhalla came up with a nickname, Pedo Protector Barbie, and it actually kind of fits. Although I wouldn't necessarily call her Barbie. She's far from that. And we're going to go over that today. We're going to see the reason behind a lot of different stuff today. So stick with me and let's get into it. All right, well, I am just going to go to the screen alone and take me off of it. Okay. So, this is the human emotional spectrum. There is 3 different emotions to the human emotional spectrum. And we'll kind of break it down into some simple charts at the end, like a pie chart and stuff, kind of to give you a visual as well. Because who doesn't like visual aids? It helps you learn. So, anyways, we're going to break this down bullet by bullet point. I know y'all can read, but I'm going to kind of read them and explain them to you as we go. So, human experience operates on a spectrum. Absolutely. And we have 3 of them. These are the base 3. It's not that we can't go beyond them, but they're the base 3. They range from your high threat to your neutral to your positive. Each of them influence our perception on reality, our emotions, and how we behave towards things, right? Because don't we see a lot of crazy behavior nowadays? Abso-freaking-lutely. And because they're playing on that spectrum and they know about it. All right, let's see if I click down. Oops. All right, let's see if I click down. Okay, there we go. All right, we're going to start off with the high threat. And this is kind of putting you in. We're going to have to go back. Yep, I messed it up. I apologize. I'm hitting buttons over here. All right. Yeah, we're going to start with the high threat. Hey, so if you hear my dogs in the background, I apologize. They're going a little crazy. They're having a little fun party time. Let me shut the door. That might help. That might not, because it is an office door and it is 90% glass. So you still might be able to hear it. It's probably a little quieter. But anyways, so the high threat, this is a lot of what the veteran gets. And we see it a lot in veterans. And it puts you, what PTSD is it puts you into this state where you have the increased anxiety, the vigilance, and like your intensity is raging and it's always high. Because I've been there, and I know a lot of my friends who have deployed have been there as well. So, one thing I didn't bring up, I think we'll be okay. I do think we'll be okay. All right, because I can't see chat, so even if I do bring it up, I might need to refigure all that out. But anyways, so it puts you into the into these 3 basic categories. They go beyond that. Today is just the basic stuff. So we're going over basics for you to understand what we're going to talk about later and how they're playing on these emotions. Why stuff in Minnesota is happening the way it's happening. Well, it's not happening anymore, but now they're shifting it to other locations. It's all, as we're going to say today, it all seems like theater because it feels like theater. And even if they're not staging the events, which we could probably get into, maybe they are, who knows? Even if they're not staging them, they're using all of them. And they know they're going to come up, and they determine what they show us on the screens, on the TV screen, on the phone screen, it doesn't matter. What is released to us is pretty much predetermined for the most part. And what's kind of nice and unique about today's day and age is they don't have absolute control over that. They still have a ton of control over it because they're still releasing a bunch of stuff and pushing narratives. And that's why they control stuff like what's trending and all this. Because who talks about what's trending? Everyone does. And if they make it trending, that's what everyone's going to talk about, and that's what controls these emotional states. We could go into that more, but we're just going to waste time if we go into that more. We got a lot to go through today. All right, and then last bullet point on this slide is your brain prioritizes your safety, right? And it wants to figure out what the threat is and try to eliminate it. So it's going to do whatever it can, whether it be shut down, whether it be rage, whether it be anger. It doesn't matter what it is. Whatever you have, whatever you have trained your brain and your body to, that is most likely what is going to pop up in a high threat state. Next is your baseline. And as an interrogator and a human guy, we talk about baseline with everything because you need baselines. Baselines tells you, it tells you everything. It tells you when they're being deceptive, when they're being truthful, and so on. So for this, it's just what's normal. That's what a baseline is. What is normal? What do you typically do? And each baseline is established off each individual person. That's why it takes time. And as much as I got something in my throat, I apologize. As much as we attribute our everyday stuff to, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Anyways, let's move on. We'll just get that thought later. And it regulates your emotional and your rational thinking, right? Because what is normal and typical is just everything that happens daily, and your emotional state and your thinking, which is rational. Again, baseline. I don't want to over describe this. We'll go to the next one, which is positive. And this is the one often that gets shut out. So you have these three states, and the third one often gets shut out. It's crazy that the positive gets suppressed the most, but it's the easiest to suppress. That's why they work on the first one that we went over, the high level state, the most. You can work on the baseline pretty decently too, because from the baseline to the high level, it's really easy to get people to react. It's harder when you have a bunch of people and they're positive. It's harder to get them all the way to the other side of from being happy to being angry. It really is. So that's why this one is often suppressed, and they do everything they can to try to keep us from happiness. Because you're happy when you feel like you're achieving your goals and everything you want to achieve in life, when you feel safe. Right? So when you look at relationships and people are like, I just don't feel safe with you, so they don't open up and they're not happy, right? So they're either blah, kind of neutral, numb to a lot of things, or they're really high, intense in that high anxiety state, and so on. Add whatever you want to with that. So, but the positive, it does promote the opposite of everything else, like good stability, good recovery, good emotional control, and it gives you confidence. This is where your confidence comes from, are these states, right? You can get a little bit from neutral, and you can get confidence and the stuff that's in the positive side. You can also get it in the high level states with anger and all that, but it's going to be false. And the reason why they're going to be fake and false, because any confidence you build from being in a high level state is going to be, it's going to be off. It's not going to seem right. Like, right? You're going to have confidence when you're angry and all that, but it's going to be fake. And people are going to see through it. And if you feel like you have that confidence, if you're angry all the time and you don't have confidence, that's most likely why. Because even when you get a little, it's fake. So, let's move on. As you can see here, I've put down that, yes, we've talked about this, people constantly move between the three, right? Because even throughout the day, we're moving between all three of these states. And environment does come into play, right? Environment, what's happening around you, and whether you control your emotions or not. So it's funny because you can put someone who is able to control their emotions really well in like we went over yesterday. We went over the Epstein interview or deposition, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter. And he was pretty neutral. You know, we went over when he wasn't neutral, when he was happy, when he was angry, and so on. And I actually came across the guy who, I forget his channel name. Let me pull it up real quick and show it to you, because we will go over this too. This guy, Dr. G Explains. So we will go over his stuff soon enough, because he is actually really good and articulate. He's been doing this for a while, as I have seen and noticed from his stuff. I have seen him a few times on YouTube before, but not much. But I could automatically see and understand he knew what he was talking about with a lot of stuff, because I was saying a lot of the stuff that he was yesterday, because we are in a very similar field. It's different overall, because he's on the doctor psychology side, but in human intelligence, it's the psychology. We may call it different things here and there, but it's all the same. It's all really similar, and it's all the same. And so he's been doing it for a while and can articulate better. And that is something that I'm working on. I know how to do a lot of this stuff really good in a lot of ways. I know where I need improvements. And one of the areas of improvement is articulating to y'all what I am trying to say, because sometimes I can't get out what I'm trying to say. It just is what it is. It's part of the learning curve. When you spend so much time trying to explain to people, so this is where psychologists can actually have a leg up. When you are trying to explain to people all of this and their emotions and all that, so you're trying to explain it to them, you can't, you just get better at it. See, I'm even getting lost in trying to explain that because I'm trying to think of different things. So you just get better at it. And when you're trained in knowing what they're doing and observing them and going in to get the information and try to find ways to manipulate the information out of them, it's a little bit different because you're not trying to explain anything to these people. It is what it is. Yeah, and I've also been rusty because it's been a while since I've actually used some of this stuff and studied it hardcore until the last couple weeks. So, it's the old saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. So you don't lose it completely. Don't get that mistaken. Yeah, you absolutely don't lose it completely. So we will go to the next slide. Well, that's a bummer. Okay. See, and me trying to get used to all this computer stuff without messing it up, that's another task in itself. All right. So, yes, as we say, it's a conundrum because sometimes if you are on the outside looking in, you're trying to figure out sometimes what state these humans are in. Because if you then need to talk to them and get information, it's going to benefit you to know what state they are in. So, we're not going to dive into everything with trying to figure out where people are and different methods you can go into with that. So, you determine that, and you determine where they are cognitively, emotionally, and functionally. And this applies to everybody in the population. So, okay, this is where it differentiates a little bit in humans. I'll let you read that for a second. Okay, this is your baseline in humans. And I tried to get the background slide out of the way of this. Yeah, that's the high level state. This is your baseline, and this is your positive for human. And there's so much more to this than just these little bullet points. It's just you can't get into everything all the time. So sometimes you just got to put it down into little bullet points. And I don't want to take too long on this. Okay, so the purpose of all this is for us to be able to understand that we have 3 states so we can then see them. And then once we see them, we can realize that maybe our perception of reality isn't exactly as we see, right? This is why I'm setting this up. So we understand that sometimes perception is a little bit different than what reality is, and vice versa. So then you can start to predict maybe stuff that's going to happen, or predict when someone's being truthful or they're obviously lying or being deceitful, because it's helpful to know when people are lying. It's not that you can tell what the lie is or why they're lying or what they're trying to cover up all the time, but if you can tell that, hey, I think they're most likely lying here, or I think they're acting, or they're being deceitful, or they're doing something to either cover up or switch the topic or cover up for somebody else or just trying to push a narrative. It just depends. So that's the point of these three behaviors that we're talking about today, and the states of our behavior, so we can determine that, because we're going to be going into that a little bit later. Not too much later. We're almost done with the slideshow. So this is just kind of a little box chart for you to see easily. All right. Pie chart, right? So let's say this is the red here is your anger state, right? So then you would say your green would be your go, so it would be your positive state, and then your baseline or your neutral is going to be blue, right? And this one is the one that often, this is, what am I trying to say? Okay, this is often, you often take stuff out of this state and you put it into either the anger state or the neutral state. I say anger, but high intensity state. So I kind of like the pie chart the best. But yes, so high stress day. Okay, well, they have it different here. But yeah, right. So your blue, of course, this isn't in this one. For some reason, when I made the chart, it put it in blue. Okay, all right. Anyways, but yeah, so this would be your high emotions right there, right? And your positive would be your green down at the bottom. I'm pointing at the screen. All right, I got to use the mouse. Okay, your positive would be here. Your high state would be here at the blue, and this would be your neutral, right? So in order to get this high, you got to take from this. And that's usually the way it works. And it works the opposite too. So you're not taking, and this is a good representation, right? Because you don't take from your neutral state often. Okay. And this is the topic that we're going to go into. Is this lady's emotional state over the past, 2 weeks or so, right? So one thing I want to point out here is, like, you can look at her face, and you have to do this with these ladies because they all look way younger than they actually are, is what you can tell from people's hands their age. It's not like you can read it and tell their actual age, but you can tell that they're covering something up. And you can often tell in the neck. That's not always the case, because actually some people do surgery on the neck. But their faces are often cut up and they add stuff to them to make them look a lot younger. And sometimes you can tell from the body, sometimes you can't. So, and also because a lot of times they're covering it up with clothes anyways. So, but I wanted to put this in there because you can tell her age right here. We can't really see her hands in this one, and we'll probably see her hands later, but you can tell right here. You can tell the age. You can tell the age. And that you can get stress in the neck too. That is a thing. Oh, hold on. Okay, okay, I hope I was pointing. Yeah, you can get stress in the neck right here. Okay, we are going to move out here while I move some stuff around real quick. Kinda before we jump into Pam Bondi, we're gonna run into it's probably a 2-minute clip maybe, and it's an interesting one. If I can get the okay, well it might be have something on the side, which is fine. Okay. All right, we're jumping in the middle of a conversation, so it might take a second for you to catch up on what they are saying.
Realize that they're a morally highly evolved us.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're us in the future or something like that.
Evolution.
They came back.
Yeah.
And interesting in the Epstein files, I think they do have something about time travel. But I think it can be more than one thing at a time. I think that a lot of it is there is spiritual phenomenon obviously happening. We're Christians, we believe in that. But also, I think that as Michael Heiser said, I want to get your take on this real quick, and I know you have to go soon.
Sure.
That when it comes down to the idea that they do have craft, so it is physical things. They have some kind of otherworldly tech. I mean, is it from a different world? No. Well, I mean, maybe the origin of it, like the idea of it could be from somewhere like a different dimension. But so they have physical craft, but likely it's the government's, right? And then if you think about it in the same way that if they would rather you say it was a UFO because that would give them cover for what they're actually doing, the alien abduction stories, when you
Okay, so distraction. So you see his little light right there? I wish I had that little light right here on mine. I might have to see if that's an option somewhere.
really dig down to what they sound like, is for one, it sounds like people are in spirit experiencing some kind of a spiritual attack. But what I really can't help separate is the idea that this sounds like these people have been MK Ultra'd. So you could imagine a situation if MK Ultra involves obviously mind control and planting false memories, wiping out real memories. Imagine if somebody experienced what they thought, or they remembered that they had been abducted by aliens, right? They were put on some kind of a table and they were experimented on sexually in all kinds of different ways by what they think were some kind of a being from Mars. But what actually happened was some feds grabbed them, threw a sack over their head, threw them in a van, took them to some base under the ground, and then they just woke up someplace, even in their own house, violated, and they had a memory of being abducted and being on some spaceship and all this stuff, and they have no idea how long it was or anything like that. Like, what are your thoughts on that? That to me would be like, that would make sense to me, because then when these people got back and they told their loved ones, I got probed by aliens, man. You're like, oh, really? You know, like as they slowly start to back out of the room because their own families don't even believe them. But if they said, I got kidnapped and I got violated, I don't even know where I was. And then they'd be, okay, if you told me a person did that and you showed me the scars, then I would more likely believe you. And then maybe you might go looking.
Perfect, doesn't it? Good cover.
Like a perfect cover story, right?
It is. Well, I think the MK Ultra thing has credence because they did basically do all the experiments in the 60s, in the 70s. It got shut down. And then I think Bill Clinton later apologized for doing it to the American people and experimenting on the American people. And we don't do it anymore, you know. That was just a time in the past where we were trying to make super soldiers to fight the Russians and all this type of thing. You know what I mean? It was a different time, you know. But we don't do that anymore. And we apologize to the victims of the experimentation that was done upon them, you know. And so publicly it's out. The records are there. You can go read them, you know. I don't think they stopped. I think they just mastered it and now they're implementing it. That's all they're doing. Like, they figured it out and the experiments are over, yes, because they don't have to experiment anymore. They know what to do. Then they're just doing it. And I think that's when the media became what it was. I think it got through the media. Many people are traumatized on a daily basis, and that's how you mind control people. You traumatize them, so they disassociate, decompartmentalize in their own minds, create alters in order to cope with the trauma, and then you can program the alter to then come out when you want it to through trigger words. And yeah, at the same time, if you abduct somebody and viciously torture them and rape them violently, then you've just traumatized them to the point where the brain naturally, as a defense mechanism, is going to forget. And instead, you can program them to have an image or a belief of what that memory is, as something else. And aliens is easier. It's actually probably easier to believe than the natural horrors of man-made horrors beyond all comprehension. Because man,
right? Because nobody would really
evil
want to
things.
believe the government is doing that.
No.
They would have to think it's some kind of nefarious thing that's otherworldly. Like you could never imagine that anybody would really happen. But I think it's really interesting. I know Candace Owens, who of course it probably is a psyop too, but some of the things she was talking about with like Charlie Kirk and the fact that he was marked as gifted for a while, and she was kind of tying it to this idea that she's calling these things like X-Men schools. And I just can't help but think about that. Like, you know what? That X-Men stuff is pretty weird. So these mutants with special powers are children of the atom, right? They have some kind of origin through like the nuke technology. And so they were created by radiation. And then so you see all this common theme in the movies where they're testing children versus some kind of a substance to kind of trigger some kind of a mutation that leads to, I don't know, is this like Project Looking Glass? Is this the idea that we're going to, even in the Montauk Project, where we're going to get these kids to astral project to Mars and to all these other places where they're trying to manifest these powers out of these children. And how do they do it? Through trauma. I want to say that's exactly kind of in the story like Deadpool, is that they get his mutation to work more by like torturing the mess out of him. And that's why he's so disfigured. And I was just like, that is so nefarious, because like they slip it in there. It's like the idea that this is going to be a good thing, but the only way you get this good thing is through torturing children. Well, like, you know what I'm saying? So like all that kind of stuff tracks with maybe some of the crazier things you might see in those files, because they're so disturbing. Like, how could people ever do that?
They do think these families do it to their own children, these power families, for this reason, because they do genuinely believe it unlocks the ability to perceive the spirit realm. And if you understand who these people are actually working for, it's handy to have a direct line to the demons you're communicating with and working with, rather than having to go through weird methods. We'll just traumatize them to the point where the perception splits and they can actually see these things. And it's not unprecedented. This is actually how shamans in other cultures get their powers to be able to communicate with spirits on behalf of the tribe. They go through trauma. Serious.
The $5 Big Breakfast Deal is back at Wawa. Get any Sizzly, any size hot or iced coffee, and a crispy hash brown, all for
spirit quests through the wilderness alone with nothing but a knife, Horrific, horrible, traumatic events. Some of them force it on them by going on spirit quests through the wilderness alone with nothing but a knife. It's kind of, you have to go out there and get traumatized, and when you come back, you'll have the wisdom and the sight and the ability to see and all these type of things, because you had to kill a bear or something with your bare hands, and it's either survive or die. It's one of those things, and if you do survive, you're going to have PTSD from what you went through. But even like in Korea, they have the Madang shamans, and they're mainly all women. Not
okay. Yeah, so I know what you're thinking. Because I think it too. That's just crazy. And it's crazy, and you can't prove any of it. Well, supposedly we're starting to be able to prove some of it. However, the reason why I bring some of that up is because they are talking. We had AI Atlas recently, and now they're talking again about disclosure. They're literally talking about disclosure again. Is this going to be another distraction from the 5 million that we're supposed to drop again, that we didn't get from the files? Supposedly, I've heard different numbers, but I've heard that we've only gotten 2% of the overall files. So imagine if we only got 2%. Heck, imagine if what we got was 25%. There's still a ton. And we've yet to see the worst of it. I guarantee this was all the PG stuff that we've seen so far, and it's been crazy. And you say, well, you can't prove all the stuff that's in there. Okay, I'll give you that. But if they're talking about this at those levels, then at the lower levels where people are talking about it and other people are looking at them and saying, well, that's a conspiracy and this and that, why are they being labeled as that? Because they put that in you. I've talked about this before. The agency did a fantastic job after JFK of making you attack everybody with that terminology of conspiracy theorist. And it's every time it's a topic that they don't like the topic, and they've given you a range to use that in. And whenever any information comes out within that range, you automatically label them that. Instead of being truthful and honest with the folks. All right, we're going to go to another one kind of on this topic before we jump straight into Ms. Pam Bondi. If there is cursing in this, I will have to bleep it out later.
I've been pretty quiet about Pam Bondi in front of Congress the other day, talking about how the Dow's up to 50,000. Nobody gives a fuck. Because what you should be talking about is how you are going to investigate and prosecute any pedophiles that were running around on Epstein Island that you're affiliated with. But we didn't talk about that, did we? Oh, and what's the excuse? What was the excuse? Oh, if we prosecute everybody, the whole system would go down. Well, you know what?
Well, yeah. Okay, if that's the case, then that means that's how broken it is. Why wouldn't we want that? We can fix it. We can fix it, not them. Not the ones who are currently up there guilty of all this. And you say, well, you can't say that they're guilty beforehand. Okay, that's fine. We can give them due process, but in retrospect to, in fairness to how we treat everybody within the justice system, they need to be arrested and they need to be held within a prison system while we determine their due process.
That sounds like? You know what that sounds like? That sounds like how Trump ran his campaign. Let's drain the swamp. Doesn't that sound a lot like draining the swamp? It actually is drain the swamp served up to you on a fucking silver platter. But you're not going to take it, are you? You're going to protect pedophiles. You're going to protect pedophiles rather than go after them and hope that everybody's happy that the Dow hit 50,000. Are you fucking out of your mind? I guess the whole drain the swamp campaign promise was another fucking bullshit lie, huh? Man, the lies are stacking up fast. I've never seen so many fucking lies appear in, what, a year? It's only been a fucking year. Look at all the fucking lies. You know, I wanted to talk to you about something else, too. Then you got Pam Bondi and what's that other guy's name? Todd Blanche. Yeah, running around giving Ro Khanna and Massey all this shit because they accidentally put two names that are apparently innocent, you know, out that were in the Epstein files. Well, I got fucking news for you. You know, you have two guys that are in Congress that are actually doing shit, and you give them shit because they made a mistake when they're trying to do the fucking job of the entire Department of Justice, because nobody over there will do their fucking job when it comes to putting pedophiles away in prison. So you give them shit because two people are trying to do the job of the entire Department of Justice. Fuck you. Fuck you. And here's another thing I'm getting tired of is seeing all these fucking politicians, congressmen, senators, fucking talking about all the shit that they saw in the unredacted files. And then you know what they do? They go right to X and they post about it and tell us all how shocked we would be of what's in those fucking files. Guess what, congressmen? Guess what?
They're playing on your emotions. That's why they're doing it. They are trying to rile you up. We talk about this daily on this channel. They're trying to rile you up. It's exactly what they're trying to do with all of it. That's why there's so much crap happening. Not only that, there's so much horrible crap happening, and it's trying to divert your attention. Trying to rile you up, divert your attention, and lastly, they're trying to split the population. And that's why they call the left and the right. In America, I think the majority of us don't feel like we're on any side. There's no sides left in America, and for those who are still on those sides, they're lost in the sauce still. They're still just lost, blindly following.
But senators, there's the speech and debate clause that says you cannot be sued for anything you say on the House floor. So here's a tip. Get to fucking work. Permission granted. Oh, and one last thing. One last thing. I saw this shit pop up the other day. Obama goes on some random podcast that nobody's ever heard of and just happens to drop, "Oh, aliens are real." Yeah, tell me that shit's not fucking orchestrated. Right in the middle of the biggest pedophile ring exposed in the fucking world. All of a sudden, we're gonna drop that aliens are real. Fuck you, motherfucker. Fuck you. Fucking aliens. Fuck off.
An IQ.
Yep. It's kind of why we pushed what I brought up earlier. Because it's all a distraction. There is something out there about that with the extraterrestrials, or however you want to say it. I really don't care how you say it. There's something out there about it that's definitely a distraction. But and then the AI Atlas stuff recently, it's, like I said, disclosure is coming, but it's only going to come when they really need it to cover up something extremely bad. Yeah, that's when it's going to come. We're going to get that at the worst possible time, I promise you. And there's going to be people surprised by it and shocked and be like, and it's not going to be what you think it is. Because it's more of a spiritual thing than anything. And you look at me and you say, "Oh, you're a nutcase. You're crazy." Okay. I mean, call me crazy. I don't care, because this is all stuff that is recognized by everything we consider credible. So, yeah, call me crazy. Because I'm not the one who just came out on a podcast and said, "Hey, aliens are real." I'm just giving you a little timeline for what I actually think it is. Okay, and then we're going to watch a little bit of this. I don't know how much we're going to watch of it, and this is Pam Bondi. This was being played live this morning. I hate how they do this and play it over again live, but I had to look it up. It's not actually live. This is from the 11th. So it's from 2/11/26. Let's roll over to it.
Trump administration, correct?
Yes, Congressman.
So it is safe to say that the administration led on that issue and that there was silence in the previous administration. Is that correct?
Yes, Congressman. Almost complete silence from everyone who's been trying to still talk about Epstein. They didn't say a word under the Biden administration. Nothing.
And I want to make one other point and then another question. That is important. I want to make one observation. That is that we've heard the information today, which is troubling, that Jane Doe's, the victim's information was made public and was unredacted in the files that were released on Friday. So my question is, some of us had argued when we were dealing with the discharge petition in Congress that when Congress inserted itself into the process, that we needed to be very careful to ensure that we were protecting victims. So a question that is both, I just want to make that clear that some of us were fighting for that here and we didn't get a chance to amend it or change it. So that was concerning. But a question a little more pointed, I have to say, is why, though, were the victims' names released that shouldn't have been? That there were names in the files, that these Jane Doe's, that their names shouldn't have been made public, when there were some accusers whose names were redacted? That's question one. And question two was that Ghislaine Maxwell was put in jail for trafficking minors. Rightly so, and you properly said here at this table, you hope she dies in jail. Well, I want to know, will anyone besides her or Epstein, which I congratulate President Trump's previous administration and this Department of Justice for continuing all of that, but that they were indicted, but will anyone else be indicted and prosecuted under this, given the information that's in front of us? So 2 questions.
Thank you for letting me answer that. They didn't want to hear my answer on the other side. Yes, given the tight time frame of 30 days, I believe we got everything released within a little over 60 days. I'm talking as fast as I can. My time is up. We did the best we could immediately. If everyone's been coming to view the documents, if someone's name should not have been redacted, we're releasing it. If someone's name was redacted, we said right away, was not redacted and should have been meaning a victim. We went back and redacted it. We're doing everything we can based on the tight time frame and over 3 million pages that we released that Donald Trump signed for pure transparency. Second, what was your second question?
About whether another individual will be indicted.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that. And they never wanted to hear the answer to that. We have pending investigations in our office.
Time the gentleman has expired. Unanimous consent request from the gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Thank you. I have several UCs as receipts. I'd like to have unanimous consent to introduce the National Security Presidential Memorandum 7 dated September 25th, 25.
Without objection.
The Bondi Department of Justice memo dated December 4th, 2025.
Without objection.
An article from Newsweek entitled DOJ Deletes Study Alleging Rise in Far-Right Terrorism dated September 18th, 2025.
Without objection.
Notice article from October 3rd, 2025. Trump's directive on organized political violence could lead to increased surveillance of his critics.
Without objection.
Washington Post article, September 25th, 2025. Trump targets domestic terrorists but only mentions the radical left.
Without objection.
Idaho Capital Sun, October 18th, 2025. Rest easy, Idahoans, the No King demonstrators are American patriots.
Without objection.
Attacks on freedom of speech, what nonprofits need to know, published by the National Council of Nonprofits, the largest network of nonprofits in America.
Without objection.
The Freedom from Religious Foundation warns that Bondi memo weaponizes federal law enforcement against non-Christians and dissenting viewpoints.
Without objection.
A Ken Klipperstein blog from January 28th, 26, ISIS secret watch lists of Americans.
Without objection.
And an Intercept article from February 2nd, 26, Trump calls his enemies terrorists. Does that mean he can kill them?
Without objection. Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Attorney General Bondi.
Good afternoon.
Oh, you're right. Good afternoon. It's been a long day. I wrote this morning. We've known each other a long time, and I'll always be appreciative for your assistance when you were Attorney General in Florida after the shooting at my high school, Marjory Stoneman Douglas, in my hometown of Parkland when we passed a bipartisan bill, the Marjory Stoneman Douglas School Safety Act, which was the largest policy response to a school shooting in American history. Your department also prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law a constituent of mine and former felon that had plans to kill me when he was picked up by law enforcement after he was target practicing in his backyard with 2 rifles, a scope, a silencer, 3,000 rounds of ammunition, and an anti-Semitic manifesto. My name was the only name on their target list, and my kids found out about this from their friends at school. So thank you. However, the most transparent administration in American history. Before Trump, we didn't know the word transparency, apparently. It's been 12 months since you gave Republican influencers part 1 of the Epstein files. You said the list was on your desk. Then a memo came out and said that there was no list. Phase 2 of the binders never happened. The President of the United States says the Epstein thing is a hoax. He blasts his own base for wanting the release of the files. He blamed Barack Obama. Republicans voted against the release of the files in the Rules Committee. Then they refused to even return to the Rules Committee until they could be protected from future votes on the release. Speaker Johnson sends Congress home a day early before break. They sent the Deputy Attorney General to meet with Maxwell. She says something favorable about the President. Miraculously, she gets transferred to a minimum security facility. No one can explain why. Miraculously, the leaks of the Wall Street Journal stopped. We come back from break. We have the Massey discharge petition. Republicans drop a rule, a non-binding resolution trying to kill the Massey discharge petition. The White House says passing the Massey discharge petition is a hostile act. Trying to stop the necessary 218 signatures, according to Republican members that signed it, the White House brought them into the Situation Room, you know, the place where the president goes for time of war, promising things like appropriations or maybe even the primary.
We got other clips.
But I'm curious,
too.
and I'd like to see flip to the Jared Moskowitz section of the binder. I'm interested to see what staff provided on the oppo on me, and because we're in the Olympics, I'm going to give a grade. I just want to see how good it is. So give me your best one.
So first of all, nothing is funny about mocking the Bible and holding up a Trump Bible. That's what you did. You made a joke, and
I tried a ton of AI work tools. Then I tried Monday.com. Game over. Monday.com is super easy to use and knows how to do.
What you got?
Has expired. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to clear something up that was said earlier and is frequently said, and is manifestly not true. And that is the supposed small number of crimes committed by immigrants or illegal immigrants in the country. That has been based on a poorly done study by the Cato Institute, and I believe the Cato Institute itself has even updated that study. The reason that we know that study is not true is that those statistics are not out there. For whatever reason, when somebody is arrested, even for very serious crimes, we do not have on the paperwork whether that person is a legal or illegal immigrant. Okay? If I go to one of my local sheriffs in Wisconsin and ask them how many illegal immigrants in your jail, they will say, I have no idea. We don't keep track of that. When I tour the federal prison right outside of my district.
Well, that's not necessarily true. They do track citizenship. Yeah, absolutely. They're gonna know who's a citizen and who's not, and they're gonna track it to some level. Some might not, and might not purposefully, but a lot will. So especially nowadays. Maybe years ago, maybe they didn't, but they're still gonna know. There's still gonna be indicators on the forms and on the paperwork they fill out. However, I mean, I don't really care. I don't trust. The reason why I don't care is because I don't trust the information that you put out and you give us. If I trusted it, If you prove to me that it was trustworthy information, but all you do is you separate, this is what they do with everything. They literally do this with everything, and it pisses me off because it's everything that's like this. And we can't ever know if anything is good or not because they create sides to it. They create the center, which is usually where the truth lies, and they create an extreme over here. I'm just going to use left and right as an example because I have my left and my right hand. Okay? So they create...
Then I asked them...
Oh, my bad. They create a right extreme. I don't care what the extreme is, and a left extreme. And then the truth is somewhere in the middle, typically. Sometimes it's not like that. It is what it is. But they create this narrative, and then they split people off, being like, well, you believe this over here on the right, you believe this over here on the left. And then they split people off, and they divide everybody. And then they say, well, no, they were wrong. That's not true. So we're going to put out counter information where they went out and they fumbled with all the counter information too. And they didn't give you honest information either way. And none of it was honest. I'm not saying there wasn't actual information in there that was honest, because they have to use real information for the most part. But like I've said before, and I've tried to explain this many times, is lies are 85 to 95% truth. Okay, you have to have a large percentage of truth in your lie to sell the lie. If you don't have a large percentage of truth, you are not going to be able to sell the lie. Sometimes you do, for a topic, you're only going to have one lie, and you're going to have a bunch of information behind that. So it's more difficult to pick out where the lie is. And sometimes you can't even pick out the lie. But that is how we train people to lie. And that's exactly how they lie to us all the time. Sometimes you can put more than one lie in. Sometimes you can get away with it. But sometimes it's literally just one lie for the topic. And everybody disagrees on everything. Encounters everything. So we can't trust any of the information. Because you've shown us that we can't trust you.
In this federal prison, how many of your inmates are illegal aliens? They will tell me, we have no idea. We don't keep track of that. So whenever you hear a Democrat or anybody...
He got that response from one person. And who knows if it was the actual police chief or a sheriff. Maybe it was like the deputy sheriff. And he's just freaking clueless. I mean, who knows? He probably got that from one or two people, and then he applies it to everybody else. Okay? Just because one or two police stations or police precincts or sheriff's office don't know, it doesn't mean that everybody else doesn't. And the majority of them don't. So he applies that narrative to everything.
Or a pundit, say that, oh, there's so few illegals committing crimes. It is based on nothing, because those statistics are not available anywhere. What I would offer in the next round of appropriation bills, if one of my Democrat colleagues wants to help me out, perhaps in appropriations we can get funds to add to all the paperwork whenever anybody is convicted of crime as to whether or not they are citizen or non-citizen. And then we will have the statistics. But otherwise, whenever you hear somebody say on MSNBC or wherever, oh, so few crimes are committed by illegal immigrants, they don't know what they're talking about because nobody has those numbers. Okay, there's the first thing. Now, the next thing I want to point.
He's poisoning your mind again. Because what did he say? He said a certain direction of news station, MSNBC, right? Oh, so that means that if we look at Fox and we look at Newsmax and whoever the others are, they're going to be telling us the truth. No. No. None of them are telling you the truth. That's what I'm trying to tell you. The truth is not coming out from any of those locations. I'm not saying they won't give you truth, but the overall narrative of all those places is to act, create theater for you, and sell you lies as truths.
We have had what I think is an unprecedented situation in Minnesota in which they are not assisting ICE in dealing with crimes that are going on up there. In other words, ICE is left to its own devices. When I talk to my local sheriffs, they tell me that whenever a federal agency is engaged in work in Wisconsin, they always make themselves available in case that federal agency needs assistance.
Pam's about to respond.
This could be something like ICE under DI. It could be drug enforcement. It could be ATF. It could be FBI. It could be Secret Service. It could be the U.S. Marshal. Nobody that I've been able to find, any sheriff in the state of Wisconsin, is aware of any circumstances in which they did not make themselves available to federal law enforcement, either if they need somebody extra to do surveillance, to just park a marked car outside the area, to assist in apprehension of a criminal, if they need assistance with an additional SWAT team, if they need to transport somebody. Local law enforcement is always there. Now, you are not in charge.
I'm going to mute him for a second because...
anything like what's going on in Minnesota?
No, instead of muting him, I'm just going to pause it. So I'm going to explain to you what I'm doing here. What I am doing is I'm taking clips of Bondi, and so you can see a lot of her baseline and normal reactions, and I'm going to go back. I'm only going to go pull one older podcast, and we're going to watch it for a tiny bit, not a whole lot, and then we're going to go watch the guy's video I mentioned earlier, the doctor dude about, I wish I could remember who. Yeah, this guy. We're going to go watch him, all right? We're going to go watch Dr. G Explains, and we're going to watch his reaction to Pam Bondi. The reason why I'm putting that at the end is because I want to point out some stuff that he overlooked, not maliciously or anything like that. He just, there's so much to go over that it's easy not to get it all, because I even overlook crap all the time because there's so much.
Where the governor or the local mayor refuses to give assistance to federal law enforcement?
I have in Portland and some other cities where they weren't cooperating. But as I said, I spent about 4 days. I did spend 4 days in Minnesota, and I believe many of the local law enforcement wish they could work with us to make their city safe.
Okay, now we'll switch to something else. First of all, I'd like to thank you for doing this today. You're obviously very bright, obviously very confident, and something I love. You tolerate fools gladly, so I appreciate that trait. You suffer fools gladly. In hearings like this, we often focus on new initiatives.
Watch them all. They all grovel at her feet. I don't know why. I really don't know why.
Undertaken by the department. Today, I'd like to give you an opportunity to discuss actions.
New guidelines protecting all Americans and protecting against the weaponization that happened under the Biden administration.
Time the gentleman has expired. Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from New York to recognize.
They always deflect, right? Instead of taking accountability, like we teach here accountability, we teach our kids accountability, and we try to teach every person accountability. And that we used to teach that in this country, but we never have it. We don't have it anymore. We never see it anymore in this country. And if you're never taking accountability for your actions, you need to rethink some stuff in your life. And you need to start going and taking accountable, because you can't hold other people accountable if you never take account for your own mistakes and your own transgressions, because we all make mistakes. We all transgress, and we do it daily. And you have to account for it. Because if you don't, you cannot hold anyone else accountable.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bondi, I went over to the department yesterday for a couple of hours to review some of the unredacted materials.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete...
Almost half of the documents, which is required by the bill. Now, obviously, and I am looking forward to your detailed
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from New York recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bondi, I went over to the department yesterday for a couple of hours to review some of the unredacted materials. And I am looking forward to your detailed explanation for why you have withheld almost half of the documents, which is required by the bill. Now, obviously, there are 3 million documents, so I didn't get through much. But one thing I didn't see was the client list that you said you had on your desk a year ago. I did, however, find a couple of important documents. An 86-page prosecution memo from the Southern District of New York and a draft indictment from Florida against Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators. For reasons that I cannot understand nor are permitted by the bill, they were still redacted, even for members of Congress. So, Ms. Bondi, will you commit right here to immediately providing those 2 documents in unredacted form to members of Congress? Not a complicated question.
Well, I guess it is for you because you have a law degree and those are privileged.
Okay, they're not privileged, but we will discuss that later.
Okay. I mean, show them to me. I won't go tell anybody. I mean, I've had a clearance before. Show them to me. I won't go tell anybody. Anything that's not able to be released. Yeah. I volunteer myself as well. Show me all the stuff. You see what she did there? They put themselves up on this pedestal. That's the pedestal we have to break. Because they are no different than us. Well, yes, they are different than us because they're a bunch of fucking perverts. And this is where I curse. Because it pisses me off. And I don't curse all the time because you lose the actual emphasis behind it when you do it all the time. But yeah, it pisses me off because they have zero accountability. And the reason why they don't, and they're like, they're privileged because we can't let other people see them because we can't let them see how terrible we all are.
I also found an email that I have right here.
Because Pam Bondi has been covering up for this guy since she came into office in 2011 in Florida. She came in, his interview that is released and that is out there that we did the video on is 2010. I think it was June 2010. I'd have to look it up. It doesn't really matter much, right? So she was in the middle of her election process, got elected in. So he was still being actively investigated. And she still did nothing and covered it up. And that's why, it's exactly why she was selected for the position that she was given here. And it's why they put Gates in front of us, and then they took him away from us, being like, oh no, he's bad here. Because this was the plan all along, was to play that hoodwink and to say, okay, well, we're going to have to settle for her. Well, no, she was the plan all along to continue covering up the files and knowing what to redact and what not to, because she's been privy to all of it since the beginning. Well, not all of it. I mean, there's stuff going back to the early 2000s and probably earlier than that too. So, but she's seen most of it and understands most of it and knows exactly what to cover up and what to allow out. So that's exactly why she was chosen, and they did it in such a theatrical way, as if you're going to look, watch this video, watch the rest of the video, and pay attention because it's theater. All these people is actors. It is straight theater, and they're acting, and that's why in their acting they try to separate us as humans, as people. And they try to lump us, hey, you're a right, you're a left, you're center right, you're center left, you're a centrist, whatever it is. They try to separate us. And then once they separate us, that's when they come in and they start twisting. And then they get you to hate the people who aren't you. Stop falling for it. It's all part of the act, man. It's all part of the act.
from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell that was unredacted, and it included notes of statements that Donald Trump made about his prior relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, there is no reason for this to be hidden from the American people. There is no privilege, there is no attorney-client privilege, and I see you're checking with your staff, and I can assure you, staff, this is not under attorney-client privilege because it was sent from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. Will you commit to publicly providing the unredacted version of this so that the American people can understand the extent of Donald Trump's lies about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein?
You're about as good of a lawyer today as you were when you tried to impeach President Trump in 2016. Have you apologized for that in 2019?
So will you unredact this? Will you
were
unredact
lead
this?
counsel on that. Privileged.
I'm asking you, will you unredact this?
Privileged.
Privileged, of course. I look forward to discussing this more. Now, these are obviously improper redactions.
And let me stop a minute.
I'm talking.
If they're not privileged,
quiet.
Don't yell at me. If they're not
Chairman, would you
privileged,
stop the clock? This is your time. It's not a Mr.
if
Goldman.
they're not
Even though
privileged,
you used your
if we review
improper
them and they're not-
redactions
you'll like my answer.
to
If we
continue
review them
to
and they're not
protect
privileged,
Time belongs to the
we will
member.
be happy to release them.
We'll
after
stop the
review.
clock. We'll stop the clock. Time belongs to the member. Go ahead.
Even though you used improper redactions to protect Donald Trump and other predators associated with Jeffrey Epstein, you did the exact opposite.
It's why nothing ever comes out of Congress, because all it is the show for you to watch. It's the act they're putting on. It's why if you look it up, go look it up and say, well, it doesn't mean anything. People come before Congress. Sure, they can do stuff, but they never have, nor will they.
Thing with the survivors and victims of this scheme. So their identification information was really the only thing required to be redacted, and it was not. And it's clear this was not a mistake. This was not by accident. This was not because you only had 30 days when you really used 75, and that doesn't even include all the hours last March that you were redacting it. But I'll tell you why it's clear it wasn't a mistake. There is an email entitled Epstein Victim List. There are 32 names. 1 is redacted, 31 are not. So someone looked at it and decided to redact something. And I will tell you that that is clearly intentional to intimidate these survivors and victims. Now, in an interview last week...
How will you tell me that's intentional?
In an interview last week, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche
You can't go off script.
said that any victim that wants to speak with the department has done so, hopefully. Well, thanks to the incredibly brave...
See, they'll even tell you in their words, hey, we scripted all this. You're like, yeah, but they have to have plans and scripts when they go in. Yeah, no, I agree. It's exactly why they read as they're going. Again, it's exactly what I am calling it, but it's even more nefarious than you look into it because you don't think about, okay, well, they're doing this to separate Americans and to do the negative things with it. Because they've proven this, and they don't care about the everyday American. If they did, stuff for the everyday American would always improve.
People sitting here behind you, we can actually ask them if that's true.
That they do this stuff.
Now, would the survivors and victims who are here please stand up one more time? Just by show of hands, how many of you or your loved ones actually have met with the Department of Justice and provided testimony and estimate and evidence? None. And of those of you who have not met, which is everyone, how many?
It's just like the Charlie Kirk stuff. There's stuff and people that they didn't interview and go out and get. Because it's not within the agenda and the plan that they already have in place. So they already know what they're going to do, so they don't need to go out and do the rest of the stuff.
Many of you have reached out either individually or through a lawyer or representative to offer to provide testimony.
And one last thing on this. I'm not even saying that all the Congress people are in on it. Because some of them, either they're really good actors or they're just oblivious to it and they actually think they're doing certain stuff in a certain way.
Testimony and evidence. All of them.
And of those of you, all of you, who have reached out, how many of you were denied or ignored by the Department of Justice? All of them. And despite the shameful and despicable efforts by Ms. Bondi and her department to intimidate you, how many of you are still willing to speak to the Department of Justice? All of them. Well, Ms. Bondi, it looks like you have some more witnesses
Gentleman's
to
time
talk
has expired.
to, and I yield back.
We will go to the good gentleman from North Carolina, Congressman Knott.
Thank you. May I have a moment, Congressman?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Here we go. Here's the photograph. This is why he wanted to repeat everything that had been said previously on Epstein. This is his state, New York. You probably don't even know who this is. Wahid Mohammed from Afghanistan.
She's talking about something that doesn't apply to the topic at hand. And she gets you a little picture, so you get more emotionally invested into it. I'm telling you, man, they know how to play the game, and they play it well, and so many of you out there are going to argue against the fact of, well, no, it's not scripted. They're going through everyday life like this. It's not 100% scripted. You're correct. It's not like a movie where they're reading off everything. They have a direction that they want to go. And they're going in that direction, and they already have it all. It's already done. It's already planned out, and so on. And it's not what we are ever told.
Afghanistan.
Yes, because I'm no longer a prosecutor.
Convicted of assault. Wow, he represents New York. Wow, yet he doesn't care about the illegal aliens convicted of crimes. Assault and homicide. No longer a prosecutor, so he doesn't care about his constituents.
She's a verbal ninja. She uses only words. She has no emotion in her face ever. She literally has no movement in her face because she's been so Botoxed out. And it's why you can't see much. Every now and again, you will see a tiny wrinkle up here in the forehead. You'll see a tiny wrinkle. But it's really abnormal that it moves because she can't show emotion in her face. And that's also another reason why she's perfect for the position, because she can't, when she's angry and stuff, it doesn't show on her face because she's been so Botoxed out with it. It's just crazy.
Here we go. Arson. El Salvador. Miguel Palacios. Fermin Flores Ramales. Mexico. Rape.
Let's talk about the 70% of immigrants who are detained without a criminal conviction or arrest.
Stop the clock. Stop the clock.
See, again, if this is true, that's terrible. We don't know that it's true, and no one's ever proved that any of it's true. Either way. That's why I tell you it is frickin' theater. And they're playing on your emotions. She's not even talking in dispute at the topic that was brought up. Because she's doing exactly what she's said to do. It doesn't matter what the topic is. You reply with this and this and this. This isn't new. This has been going on the past 30 plus years. We just didn't get as much access to it all to see it as much and be able to rewind it and have such clear video with everything on it. That's what's new. But it's been the whole thing, and it's all theater. It's all theater. Because nobody wants those criminals in the country, but also nobody wants the other side of what they're claiming, innocent people to get wrapped up and rolled up with it. We don't want either. But they always play the sides. And the reason why they do it, and they continue to do it, and they will keep doing it, is because they are separating you and I. Because they want to put you on a side and separate you from the other side, because we can't unite and come against all those who are the pervs in the Epstein files and who are all the pedophiles at the highest levels. We can't come and unite against them and take them out of power because we're separated because of the crap that they keep putting out in the shows that they keep putting out in front of us. I wouldn't even say it's carefully orchestrated, because it doesn't have to be. It's why you have news stations who they don't report any truth. They report one side or the other. Because at some point in history, a little bit of the news was, hey, well, this is what the truth is. This is where we stand on it and what we believe and so on. And we left all that. But it does even go back to, I mean, Walter Cronkite was still a part of their theater and a part of their plan. But I also still think he had some truth in him. But yes, it is exactly done that way to separate us so we don't hold them accountable for when we find out this crap about them. Because there's even worse stuff than what we have seen so far. It's worse. It's why they're doing everything they can to not release it. And in all reality, the actual stuff that's really, really bad, it probably doesn't even exist anymore. Why would it? Seriously, why would it? And if it does exist, it's on a separate server somewhere, off by itself.
Time belongs to Congressman Knott. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Attorney General, I want to be sure that the American people understand exactly what we're referring to when we talk about sanctuary policies. They are often...
Boo. I want to speed this up.
framed in sort of innocuous terms like, we refuse to take part in immigration law. And when you add up all of the population represented by these cowardly politicians in sanctuary jurisdictions, whether it's a county, city, or state, sanctuary jurisdictions account for roughly 40% of the United States. Now, in reality, thoroughly go through that file.
Really good one.
Trust between the American public and those on which there is broad bipartisan agreement. Thank you, Attorney General, for being here today. I want to talk with you about an issue on which there is broad bipartisan agreement: the importance of ensuring trust between the American public and those government officials who wield powerful law enforcement responsibilities. So, Attorney General, would you agree that it is important for law enforcement leaders to be honest?
Of course, as well as members of Congress.
Thank you. And would you include yourself as a law enforcement leader?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. You know, President Trump has also, he has referred to himself as the chief law enforcement officer of this country. So do you believe that President Trump is honest?
He is the commander-in-chief of the United States of America, and not only is he keeping this country safe, he is keeping this world safe.
It's a simple question, which you didn't answer.
He is the commander-in-chief.
Last June, Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman, her husband Mark, and their...
Again, I'm going to keep pointing this out as it comes. So, yes, the way they ask questions in Congress, they all suck. And I've said this time and time again. Get someone like me or other people to come up and teach you how to frickin' question people. But they do it purposefully because, well, first of all, they only want to allow certain information out. They don't want them to get too happy with talking, whoever it is. So they ask crappy questions. But also because they suck and they're usually the worst of society who's up at that level. They're not the brightest, because the brightest are off owning companies and producing for the country and other places. I truly believe that. I used to not, but it's so evident that these are the ones who couldn't make it in real society, but they were smart enough to be able to play the game a little bit. If you see what I'm saying. I'm not calling them completely stupid. Because you can't be completely stupid and get there. But they wouldn't ever make it out in building businesses on the outside on their own. And then you're gonna deny that and go show me a bunch of examples of people who got government contracts after they left office. Well, yeah, that's because of the people they know. They didn't build it organically. It was the position that they had that built it for them. Okay? Like, you can show that to me. I don't care. That doesn't disprove anything that I just said. But, okay, the point that I was making with all that is this. We'll go back and watch it real quick again.
Dog.
And she say, he is the commander and chief
of this. Also, he has referred to himself as the chief law enforcement officer of this country. So do you believe that President Trump is honest?
He is the commander in chief of the United States of America, and not only is he keeping this country safe, he is keeping this world safe.
It's a simple question,
of
but
course
you didn't
I do.
answer.
He is
Okay,
the
thank
commander
you.
in chief.
Last June, Minister.
So it was a simple question. It was a yes or a no. And they always do this. They add the theatrics to it. Because they want it to be a Jerry Springer type show for you. They do. And these people, like this lady and her, can actually really dislike each other in real life, but still play the theater and still play the game the way that they want it to. The goal is to separate us. Don't let them separate us anymore. That's what I try to tell people. The whole point of me pointing all of this out isn't to bring up any... there's a lot I can't prove. It is what it is. And even if I went and tried to dig into it and all that stuff, it would still be on a level difficult to prove. But you can tell when people are faking it in society and through daily life. Like those who are trying to fake it and fake being something that they're not all the time. That's what all these people are doing. And that's the level of theater that this is. Not only is there some actual theater going on where they're actually giving them scripts, it's why they have all these unseen people behind the scenes. And it's why they have all these people who are constantly writing them stuff. They all have people writing stuff for them. Because it's all part of the act. It is literally a big act. And it's to separate you. Don't let them separate you from your neighbor. Do me and my neighbors agree on everything around me? No, but we all get along. And we're all different. And we're all different ages. But we all get along. And we don't dislike each other. That's what they're afraid of. Because if we have that where we all like each other, then we can hold them accountable for the crap that's coming out right now. The crap that is coming out right now about them harming kids is why they want to separate us, so we don't hold them accountable for that shit. Stop playing the game. There is a lot of organic protesters out there, right? There is. The base of all of that, though, is not organic. It's all put out there purposefully. And I don't even want to say it's the other side putting it out there. It could be the same side putting it out there to create the show. I don't know, and I don't care. I don't care who it is. It's somebody, and they're putting it out there. And then that sparks in people, because people want to be with groups of people. We want a tribe. We want groups of people. We want to be liked. It is human nature. It is what it is. Right? And there's nothing wrong with that. So then you go out and you join these groups. And it's all the same type of people. Because it's everywhere you go, you have different groups of people. And it's always the same types of people. But they do that, and then they take that group of people, and then they attack them. And then they make people in society attack them and say, hey, they're different. Like, I have made a video on this. There's nothing wrong with being different. It's beautiful. You're a beautiful person, and you're different. And your differences are what make you special. And they're using that against you, and you're not even seeing it. And it saddens me. Because you are special, and you are different, and it's okay, because we're all special, and we're all different. And then you go to and then you go out there, and you think it's organic. And then you start doing crazy stuff, and you wind up being the one in jail. And the ones that were a part of the organizing the, whatever you want to call it, protest. The ones that were the paid shills, the paid actors, and so on. They're never put into prison and behind bars. Because why would they? They got another game to go play somewhere else. They have more work they need them to do. And that's how they're separating us. Don't let them separate us like that. And they're going to add a bunch of filler into stuff like this to create the theater of it. Stop letting them separate us for our differences. That's what makes it beautiful. That's what why America is beautiful. The immigrant is what makes America beautiful. But it's also what makes it great is that we had it controlled at one point to bring people in. And yeah, that the way it's been the past 30 years when it was controlled, that was broken too, because I don't think we were letting enough in. And I can say that because we have tried to get some people that I worked with overseas who we vetted very thoroughly to actually come over and become citizens and live in the U.S. And it would get denied all the time. And I'm like, wait, we're doing some of the best investigations in the world, and you won't allow us to bring people in who we've already vetted and see as high-class individuals, like, that's when we knew the system was broken. But we didn't realize at the time that it's all purposefully broken. It's all done deliberately. To what extent is very hard to tell. And I will continue to say that. I cannot tell to what extent it is deliberate, what is exactly natural and what is not natural. That's the beauty of it, man. It's really good. Like, they do a really good job of it because they play on people's natural emotions. This is the best thing. When you don't have to act and you can hijack someone's natural emotions, that's the best thing to use to split people up, is to use their actual emotions. And this is what I say they do so much in the halls of Congress. They use all their natural emotions. And they separate. For some reason, society's following exactly what they're doing in Congress. Like segregating people, living on your emotions, good, bad, or indifferent, or neutral, it doesn't matter. Society is living exactly as the halls of Congress is, and that's not conducive to life. At all. That's why they're all old zombies. And I think there's something within the system that has... I think something happened along the line. Because I don't think... I think something broke along the line. Because it shouldn't be all old people. Oh, there's a few young ones. Yeah, and those young ones will be there 50 years from now. We already know it. So it's an entire broken system.
Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman, her husband Mark, and their dog were brutally murdered in their home. And your USA's office in Minnesota investigated this crime and obtained a 6-count indictment of the murder suspect, stating that he had intent to kill, injury, harass, and intimidate Minnesota legislators. And I have the copy right here. I read through it. Yet a few weeks ago, President Trump suggested publicly that Minnesota Governor Tim Walz was behind these murders, posting on his Truth Social account a video raising this conspiracy theory. And it wasn't true. And you know it wasn't true, or else you would not have brought an indictment against the subject. Do you know what else Trump has said? He has said he has cut gas prices by 1,400%. False. That he won the 2020 election.
Actually, gas is down to $1.99 a gallon, thanks to
that he didn't know Epstein.
Maybe $5 in California.
It's my time, Mr. Chair. That he sent water to LA during the wildfires. False. That Governor Westmore of Maryland called him the greatest president of his lifetime. False. So many tales, too many to keep up. But
it's all part of the theater, man. Like, it is all part of the theater. Why do you think they put in an actor? He's an actor. He has been his entire life. A lot more of these people are actors and actually have the acting background than you would probably believe. We're going to have to skip ahead a little bit.
I want to go back to what he said about Tim Walz. Do you agree that President Trump undermined public trust in law enforcement by suggesting that Governor Walz was involved in the Hortman murders?
House of Words.
I can't stand this because Walz was never held accountable for anything. Giving a top secret tank manual to the Chinese in the 90s and your unit came out and said you did all this? And we didn't hold him for treason? And that wasn't brought up during the presidential run this last time around. And I'm not on either side anymore. So I don't care what sides, because sides don't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who is in control, because there's an overall narrative, and that narrative's going to be fed anyways. It's the little things that are emotional things that they sell everybody. It's the little things that they sell everybody on. They push people on the topics that they don't really care about, but people care about, and it gets their emotions rising. But the same agendas are going to come out regardless. It doesn't matter who's in office. Because it's a system that I think has been rigged against us for a long time. And there's plenty of evidence out there. You just got to go look. If you go look, you will find it. If you want to open your eyes. If you don't want to, then don't. Let's move forward to Bondi.
Pastor of that church, and what happened there was horrific. Of course, the press is welcome, and I would hope all houses of worship, whether it's a synagogue, whether it's a church, any house of worship. However, what happened here is a pending case again, but within the four corners of the indictment, they were, quote, gearing up for a resistance. They entered a house of worship, and I think the video speaks for itself. What happened in there, what the video doesn't show, is there were approximately 400 parishioners in there on a Sunday morning, families, grandparents with canes, children upstairs in an
grip, stability, precision. That's the essence of driving. Lawfin.
Resistance took place, and they had named it Operation Pull-Up. It was heartbreaking for those families. They were terrified. I think they've all said that, and nothing like that should happen in this country, and under my watch, it won't.
Thank you. And just to clarify.
So I won't say that the church was necessarily in on it. It wouldn't surprise me. But so much of this it's all orchestrated ahead of time. To what degree and what level, I don't know. Does that matter, though? Because if you can orchestrate 10% of it, and it gets you 100% of the goal of what you wanted, and it makes everything else seem original and on par with what it needs to be, and it seems legit, that's exactly the way you want to do it. It's like the lie, right? You want most of the lie to be 85 to 95% truth, and you want the little bit, the small percentage, to be the lie. It's like you want the acting portion to be what controls the topic and the narrative that you have, right? The 5 to 15%, let's say. Let's use the example I just gave. The 5 to 15% to be the narrative, and everything else to be organic emotions and people responding organically and stuff like that. But that still doesn't mean that it wasn't an act. Because it's the 5 to 15% of theatrics that got them there. You say, yeah, but everything else was organic. It's still theater, man. It is still theater. It doesn't, regardless of the percentage. I never sold you a percentage being like, this is 100% like a movie in Hollywood. That's where I think people are misunderstanding. It's not like a movie in Hollywood where everything is, you have every little word scripted. No, but a lot of times they do. There are times that they do have that. And it's really weird when you actually look at those times. But yes, it's all scripted. It's why they have so many people writing all these scripts out for them. You just have to step back and look at it. And it's annoying me because I don't want to see it anymore. I would rather go back to being naive. I really would.
Accosting members of a congregation and creating a scene marked by intimidation and threat inside a house of worship would not be protected First Amendment activity, correct?
Absolutely not, and a grand jury has indicted individuals over that.
Thank you. One other question, just shifting a little bit. My home state of North Carolina has been making national headlines at times, particularly in the city of Charlotte. We've made pleas at times for our governor to get involved, bring in the National Guard. Our Fraternal Order of Police had pointed out that we were about 270 local cops below what we needed in order to adequately police the city. And yet the governor's declined to offer to partner with the federal government to bring in reinforcements to Charlotte. I want to give you just a few moments, really the balance of my time, to explain the impact that Memphis Safe Task.
I was only, down near the Panther Stadium. But I was down there at the end of December, and it wasn't crazy. Well, I don't know, but I also don't go out at night. And, that's when a lot of bad stuff happens. I don't go out at night on purpose, right? Because you don't... The reason why we have those statements, nothing good happens after dark, or nothing good happens after midnight, is because they hold true a lot of the time. Because evil likes darkness. And you can make that statement even if you don't believe in God.
Task Force has had on crime and safety in Memphis, because I know there was a place we saw that cooperation has tended to breed great results, and I would love to hear a little more about that.
Thank you. And I have numbers for you, too. And we're all right here in D.C. We're all living right here in D.C., and I think we've seen the remarkable impact that it has working with members of the Democrat Party on this, with law enforcement, with the mayor, with the police chief, doing everything we can to make D.C. safe. As of February 9th, there were nearly 10,000 arrests. This is D.C. 1,000 illegal guns seized since the operation began, with carjackings down 81% from this time last year, and violent crime down 42%. D.C. is safer because of it. We know we had a National Guardsman shot, and we had a beautiful young woman killed. I went to her funeral, and I keep in touch with the National Guardsman who was shot, his parents. He's doing great. He's a miracle. Please continue to pray for him. I know my time is up, but same results I spoke about earlier in Memphis, and we're still working on that with the help of Make Memphis Safe Again.
Well, again, I think it just draws an incredible contrast between what we've seen happening in Minneapolis versus what we've seen happen in D.C., what we saw happen in Memphis, and what I would love to see in some ways, if we could ever get our governor to work with us in North Carolina, to happen in Charlotte. But with that, I yield back. Thank you.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. I seek unanimous consent to introduce into the record the research that Representative Conlager-Dove and I referenced concerning the threat of right-wing.
Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God?
I do.
Let the record show that the witness has answered in the affirmative. Thank you. You can be seated. And please know that your written testimony will be entered into the record in its entirety. Accordingly, we ask that you summarize your testimony. Madam Attorney General, you may begin.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Raskin, and distinguished members of this committee. Thank you for hosting me here today. I'm grateful for the opportunity to answer your questions, highlight the work of our department, and discuss the most important topic of all, keeping the American people safe. A little over a year ago, I was sworn into office as the 87th Attorney General of the United States. I came into office with the goal of refocusing the Department of Justice on its core mission after years of bloated bureaucracy and political weaponization. The Department of Justice's core mission is to fight violent crime, protect the American people, and defend the rule of law above all else. While our work is never done, we have made tremendous progress to make America safe again. In 2025, we saw the lowest murder rate in 125 years. That's nothing short of historic.
Okay.
If you compare 25...
I don't care anymore about that. It's boring the tears off my face. And that makes total sense. Okay. We'll see if we can't pick something.
And then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society. And I think what Erica said is they had no idea what they unleashed by doing this around this country and around this world, how so many more conservatives, I think, who were quiet are going to come out and be so outspoken. They thought they could silence Charlie, and it was the opposite.
So what was your personal relationship with Charlie? What are some memories with him? And what's the last week in your life been like?
Well, most recently, I was with Charlie just not even a few weeks before he was assassinated, and we were in Sergio's office, and I got a giant hug from him, and we had a great conversation, and he's, we talked on the phone a lot too. And Charlie was a great human being, but he was a great Christian. And in fact, at I think 1:30 a.m., Sergio sent me the picture that's been going around of Charlie hugging Jesus as he's being welcomed into heaven. And I think that speaks volumes. We all know that's where Charlie is right now. Charlie's in heaven. Is there any good reason why this happened? No. And you can't, intellectually, you can't make sense of it, of why someone could do this. As Attorney General, you go into prosecutor mode instantly and, talking to all the different agencies and figuring out ATF, FBI, all of them, marshals even, who have all been doing such a phenomenal job on this case. But you just can't reconcile why, how this could happen. And, we know Charlie's in heaven, and you've got Erica and these two beautiful kids.